To a special edition of PWTB, everyone. Today we have a debate. Thomas came on our show a couple weeks ago and he was challenged against his beliefs on the Republican Party and how the Republican Party should move forward. So let's introduce him. Let's put him out on the screen. On one side, we got Branden, who's worked in Arizona. He's worked with the late Senator John McCain and a bunch of others. We got Branden. How you doing, Branden?
Good, doing all right. Thanks for having me on. Here to defend the America First message.
All right. And then on the other side, we got Thomas. Thomas, as we've had on before, he worked with John James this past cycle, and he is here to defend another side of the Republican Party. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. So
Good.
Let's start. We're going to do opening statements. Branden, I will give it to you. You got 45 seconds.
Well, thank you for having me. The biggest thing that I see what's happening in our party right now is the divide, and I think that's everybody knows that. But what we have to really get down is what kind of party do we want to be going into this next election? And for me, looking back on 2022, we made a lot of mistakes, and it really has to do with our leadership. The leadership has to go. I think that's the biggest issue. You know, the establishment and the globalists, they want to say that it's the MAGA agenda, the MAGA candidates. I don't think so. I think that what we need to do is get new leadership in there, and we need Donald Trump more than ever before. We need a fighter. I like Ron DeSantis, but people, you know, he's not even running yet. He hasn't announced, and we really need Trump back.
All right, your time's up. Thank you. Thank you. Thomas, opening statement.
Well, thank you for having me again. So I could probably say the same thing. Like on the 22 outcome, we had terrible leadership. Like Ronna McDaniel, who has already lost 2018, she lost 2020, definitely. You know, then 2022 we flopped. So I would actually agree with Branden on that part. We have terrible leadership, and that's with Mitch McConnell, who refused to fund candidates for months, like Dr. Oz, Adam Laxalt, Blake Masters. He didn't even barely funded Blake Masters. That's probably the thing that's probably pissed a lot of people off. You know, then we have Herschel Walker. He was more focused on defending his girlfriend. That's like terrible. Lisa Murkowski, by the way, famous. Then, you know, I would say like Donald Trump, he really, you know, he made the Republican Party better, because we did not even have a winning platform in 2016 until he won.
Unfortunately, you are out of time, but I'm sure we'll get to many of these issues. So let's go to the first question. So Thomas, the first topic we're going to cover is the stolen election. So Thomas, your opponent has stated that you are too soft and caved to the establishment on election integrity. There are a lot of laws still in place from 2020, even though the pandemic is over. And in his home state of Arizona, it took a week to get final results. Are you caving in? You got 90 seconds uninterrupted.
Absolutely not. I think Brandon's just saying that just because, you know, he's angry about his results. I do think Arizona, there was some bullshit bull crap that happened.
Thank you.
Then here's the thing. I would say we need common sense, you know, laws like voting ID. You know, I feel like the idea is like in Arizona, we might get that fixed, but at the same time, we might not because of Katie Hobbs vetoing every bill the legislature is going to do. And we're not going to be able to fix this stuff in like Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania because, you know, all the governors, the legislature, and all that. So I think the best idea is because since the Democrats actually have a vote mail-in machine in all across the country, they could easily build up a big lead before Election Day. And the idea is we need to not declare war on mail-in voting, and then we could help embrace mail-in voting like the California GOP has done. This is increased ballot harvesting there, and that's helped their candidates win. And this would be the better way to avoid these long lines like we had in Arizona, and this would get more people to vote because there's going to be a lot of people who don't have time on Election Day, but they don't want to vote mail-in, afraid they're going to get their votes stolen. We got to ensure that it's not going to it's safe. And we're going to, you know, if the Republicans want to do better, we need to play the game, you know, have the drop boxes in our favorable areas, like the retirement homes and the gun stores and churches. We could also start busting people to polls.
Thank you. Your time's up. All right. Same topic to you, Branden, but different question. So your position is that the GOP should fight back on election integrity, but the party has been doing that for the past 2 years. It is a valid political position to have change to voting laws, But instead of fighting a problem that continually loses in court, couldn't you play the game instead?
Look,
You got 90 seconds.
I believe in election day, not election season. And what Thomas is saying is that we should play by the left's rules. Look, they want to take advantage of the system. That's on them. And I don't think we should do that. Maybe some states can do it because, like California, for example, the Republicans will never get in control. Okay, let's face it. So they have to play the game. But in swing states like Arizona, Georgia, what happened here was grossly negligent in terms of the election officials that handled this election. I know from experience, I stood an hour and a half in line just to vote. Now, I thought Carrie Lake had it in the bag, and quite frankly, she did. But these irregularities that happened on election day here were so, and Thomas, you're just caving to the left on this issue. We cannot look, they're always going to play the game to win, and our party leaders are stupid. Okay, they don't know what they're doing, and what we need to do is we need to enforce our laws that we had on the books pre-pandemic and get rid of these mail-in voting, because who knows what's happening. And look, we need to go back to election day and get rid of election season. That's all what it's about. And look, ballot harvesting, I'm very against it because people do take advantage of that system, and the Democrats play it very well. And we can do it, but they're still going to do it. And it's just a spiral down to, we're losing our country here. We cannot have this go on in our elections.
All right, thank you, Branden. You're out of time. Thomas, 60-second response.
So, Branden, you're saying like we can't play the same game because it's okay. Here's the thing about what's wrong with your enforcing these laws and all that. Like we can't do anything about it anymore. But like Michigan, the Republicans lost their legislature. Pennsylvania, they lost the state house. Arizona, they lost the governor mansion. They can't even enforce these laws because they don't have the power to do so. And the courts will just keep rejecting it because I'll simply say, like, a lot of people who use mail-in or early voting, they can't make election day because they're either old, can't even, get to these polls. And we have, people who don't have time, like you said, there were people in lines, they just left because they just didn't have enough time to go out and vote. And I'm saying if we encourage it, we could get more people to turn out in our favor. And here's an issue is that, obviously the Republicans, I would say, need to do it better. And if they're going to say they're cheating, let's do it back. Like, why?
Right. Thank you, Thomas. You're out of time. Branden, 60 seconds.
Look, I don't think the solution to crap policy is more of it. Okay, look, we need to really get control of our elections or we're going to totally lose our country. The past two election cycles, 2020, 2022, were devastating for the Republican Party. And we need to get this one right or else we're gone. We're gone as a country. We need to get back to what we had in place for our elections. There is no reason why that it should take more than a week in 2022, 2023 for these elections to be counted. It just opens the door for irregularities and doubts over the election. We need to take control back of our elections. And look, for example, Pennsylvania, 2020, they broke the law. The election officials, they broke their own laws to enforce mail-in voting and all this sorts of stuff. And we let them get away with it. That election should have been tossed out on that reason alone, okay? But anyway, that's 2020. 2022, the same exact thing happened again because
all right, thank you.
Rhinos.
Thank you, Branden. You're out of time. And by the way, I appreciate the civility. You are allowed to jump in on responses if you want to. But so let's move to well, too late now. No, I'm kidding. But on the next one. Let's move to the 2022 election. So I'll go to you first, Branden. You have stated, you got the hat right there, that you want MAGA populism. In some House seats in your home state of Arizona, there were some gains, but across the country, a lot of Trump candidates lost, and a lot of them lost really bad. So you fully embraced MAGA. Didn't it just lose?
It didn't lose. I think that it was a weird election. Let's just put it that way. Some states had red surges, red waves. Some states did not. And I think it all comes down to who's in charge of your elections and who's in charge of your party in each individual state. Now, here in Arizona, we had the all-star team pretty much on our ballot. But because of the irregularities and the voting day mess, everybody knows voting day, Republicans are favored 2-1 for people turning out. And look, it was voter suppression. I was in line. I saw many people getting out of it. That's just here in Arizona. Now, places like
isn't that a cause because we're all rallying up on election?
No, I meant only on the responses. This is just his initial on the rebuttal. Yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Yes. Well, anyway, so it really depends on what states have. Like, for example, Lee Zeldin, he ran a terrific campaign in New York. Now, that's because the RNC was heavily supporting him. He had the support. There's a lot of candidates here in Arizona that did not have the support from the RNC. Mitch McConnell, that weak, spineless SOB, he was pulling funding from Blake Masters in a swing state. Can you believe that? He needs to go, and a lot of other people in the RNC and all these party leadership have to go after this election mess. There is no reason why Blake Masters, Kerry Lake, and our down ballot people should have lost. And we had big victories in congressional seats. We flipped 2 of them here. So how can you tell me that Kerry Lake, who ran a phenomenal campaign, lost, and we had wins everywhere else?
Thank you, Brandon. You're out of time. So Thomas, same topic about the election results, different question. So you claim that we could have had better candidates in the Republican primaries. However, these candidates didn't pass the eye test for GOP voters. Even in Maryland, not a conservative state by any means, Larry Hogan's GOP governor pick had no chance in the primary. Is your position that the candidates were bad, out of touch with what the party thinks?
Well,
you got 90 seconds uninterrupted.
Okay, so I mean, like the mix of bad candidates, I'm saying like Tim Michaels, Tudor Dixon, and Doug Mastriano, who dragged down their tickets, both in the House and the Senate. And we could also say Dan Cox dragged down the Maryland 6 guy who ran. Then, I would also say, these candidates were too, like Tim Michaels, who didn't really run a campaign at all. He just stayed home after 5 o'clock. And then Tudor Dixon and Doug Mastriano had no funding at all. So, it all comes down when we didn't have the funding. And then, we had Tudor Dixon, who was going around saying no exceptions to abortion, which is probably the most unpopular thing you could say in a purple state like Michigan and Pennsylvania. Especially when Generation Z, who's a very left-wing, don't like that response. And that ultimately put a big blow to the Republicans, and there was a huge increase in turnout in the Generation Z in these states. So, yeah, I would also definitely say they were definitely out of touch with their the party in their state. And then, Tim Michaels, I'm going to go back to him saying he would never let the Republicans lose in Wisconsin again when he's governor, which would probably scare a lot of people who are independent, saying that he's going to do something weird with these elections or something. And that's not the thing we're going to have to go with. Kerry Lake and Robeson, I don't know who would have truly have won. I mean, we always say that, but at the same time, like, it was definitely a weird election. All
right. Thank you, Thomas. 60 seconds response to Brandon.
Well, look, there's 3 things that we need to get control of going into 2024. And those 3 things are, we need new leadership. That's an absolute thing that we need to get done. Because the leadership that's in place now was under Trump. Okay, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, all these people, Ronna McDaniel, they failed. And they basically sabotaged his presidency by not standing up to the left and allowing these rhinos to take control of the party and drive it into a wall. Okay, that's what happened in 2022. Okay, the second thing that we need to get control of is our elections. Our elections are a mess right now. We need election integrity. We need people to trust our elections again. The people that trust our elections is at an all-time low. Okay. And then the third thing, we need to really fix our messaging. Like Thomas said, Tudor Dixon, she was saying the wrong stuff. And you know what? That really comes down to her campaign managers and all the people that were surrounding her. She needed a team, the RNC needed a team around her that could fix the messaging. And those are the 3 things that we need to fix. Leadership.
All right, thank you, Brandon. 60-second response to Thomas.
I could probably agree with that. We need better leadership. I mean, I have really just advocated McDaniel has got to go, and I would say, we did actually have a team around Tudor Dixon, the former governor of Michigan that was around during the, Republican Revolution, all that actually was, he was helping her practice for debating and all that. She personally just said this out of, hand. And it wasn't even just her in Michigan. It was Matthew DePerno, who ran for attorney general, and Kristen Camaro. That lady was crazy, ran for secretary of state. So, we need the right messaging for each state. Like Arizona, maybe like in the state like Florida, you could probably say, I want abortion gone. No one would probably care too much because Florida.
Well, you wouldn't be able to say that 10 years ago. And
Oh,
Ron
definitely not.
DeSantis, I like him. He changed the messaging there. And we need leaders. We need to put our faith into leaders like him. 2018, Ron DeSantis was seen as a MAGA candidate, and he still kind of is today. And we need to invest in our candidates, and we did not do that in 2020, and it's such a shame because Carrie Lake is a superstar, and I am so disappointed that people did not stand with her.
But anyway, do you think that she also kind of turned off some of the Republicans who were kind of loyal to late Senator McCain by telling them they can't be in their party anymore?
No, I don't think that had anything to do with it. No. Mm-mm.
But I mean, like there was 9% of Republicans who voted for Katie Hobbs.
So. Well, there's always going to be like 10% of each party that doesn't support.
But compared to that, it was only 2% of Democrats who voted for or 4%.
Well, look, Democrats, they vote in lockstep with each other. I mean, that is the problem that is in our party. We need to be more unified. We need to back our nominated candidates. We can't be having these rhinos be sabotaging our elections. That's really all it comes down to. Like, I mean, there's nothing really else to say about that.
But isn't it ideal?
Thank you. Anything, Thomas, for your response, since this was your response, anything you want to finish up quick?
But isn't it ideal to run the candidates that are fit for the state instead of let's do the whole?
Because why have a rhino that's going to fall asleep at the wheel and allow our country to go to hell and allow our culture to decline? We cannot.
Who would you define a rhino? Just saying.
What would I define a rhino? A person that caves to the left on these cultural and social issues.
Like who?
Like who? Larry Hogan. You said Larry Hogan earlier. He's a great example.
That was Evan, but I mean, Larry Hogan is in the state of Maryland. Like, you can't like Trump in the state of Maryland. You gotta agree with that.
Speaking from personal experience, in 2016, I worked for the Republican Senatorial Committee. They signed me to John McCain's campaign.
Correct.
I helped him. But you know what? Looking back, he was a rhino. And he was working in lockstep with the Democrats to sabotage the America First agenda. And, we cannot have people like that in our party going forward. Right. It is going
Thank you. We do got to move on, and there is more talk about rhinos in the future. But real quick, for our candidates to get a chance to drink some water, just mentioning after a debate, there will be a poll on our Twitter. PWTB for life is the handle. We will also have that in the bio. You can vote. Who do you think won this debate? You can take a vote, and we might have some more polls there. So be sure to check this out. So let's move to a next topic. This one's a little more quick, but still important, I think, in terms if we're talking about elections, is there is a conservative value issue like abortion that has been brought up for why the GOP has failed, even by former President Donald Trump, who has said that the pro-lifers got what they wished for, and then immediately vanished. Show of hands, do you believe being pro-life is a losing issue in a general election? Anybody? Nobody. Okay. So, Thomas, I will go to you first. Why is that?
Well, there's a time and place you could say stuff like that. Like, there's not every pro-lifer wants abortion banned completely. It's a moral issue, and, like, a lot of people even think we should have like a limit to it. Like some of these, fair Republicans like Glenn Youngkin and all, Brian Kemp and all, they have like a limit, like 15 weeks, 12 weeks. A lot of people could view that as fair. It's like the people who want abortion banned completely. That's the losing issue. And if we're, like 12, 15 weeks on abortion, I don't think the Democrats could use that much to an advantage because let's be honest, 3 months is probably enough time for you to figure out if you want it or not.
Okay, Branden, to you.
This comes back to the messaging issue. In 2022, we had an RNC that did not give guidance to candidates running on what to say and how to message it. And really, it's an individual issue. It's a private issue. That's why I like how I totally supported overturning Roe v. Wade and returning the power back to the states. You know, somebody in Alabama is going to think very differently than somebody in California. And it's really a state issue. Now, the Democrats were smart and they took advantage of this and they made it a national issue. And the RNC should have stopped that in its tracks, and they did not. And it really comes back to messaging and party leadership on this, because I don't think it's a losing issue. Half of the country is pro-life, and we need to get control of our culture, because we have to really let people know, especially independent voters and people in the middle of the road, what the Democrats stand for. They stand for abortion up to the 9th month in some states. They support partial birth abortions. They support all this radical stuff. And we need, our candidates in 2022 did not really message that right. And it's something that we need to get control of. Now, the Democrats are going to play the same card in 2024, and we better get it back.
All right. Thank you, Branden. Thank you. I just wanted to touch on that, but let's move to another more recent issue, which is the Kevin McCarthy speakership vote. So we'll start with you, Branden. You said you completely endorse anybody who opposed him, which there were 20 originally. Is this standing up against the establishment, or is it dividing the Republican Party?
Let me just say, if I was a representative, I would have not voted for Kevin McCarthy. I think that we really need to send a message to our party leadership. Unlike the Democrats, I think this was a great thing that happened. Unlike the Democrats, we really stand up in our party. We really stand up to the party leadership. And I think the tides are turning. I think that, you know, Kevin McCarthy got a clear message that it's not going to be business as usual this next 2 years. And we really need a tough speaker. Now, I hope and pray that he is the leader that we need in Congress. But I would have not voted for him. I would have supported Andy Biggs for speaker, in all honesty.
Okay, Thomas, same question to you. Do you think that you are trying to unite the party, or are you caving into the establishment?
Well, I mean, outside of Steve Scalise, I think he was the most qualified person to be Speaker of the House. I mean, I think we could have all agreed that Freedom Caucus and him should have gotten together and agreed all on this stuff in November, so we wouldn't have had to hold it to 15 votes. So it probably made us look bad on paper that we were just holding out and not having a Congress for like a few days, and that the Democrats were really unified on voting for Jeffries. So it was a third person view thing, not like so. We were divided after this election because we underperformed in the House, and I would say the Freedom Caucus was angry about it. But I would, at the same time, like, if I were a representative, I probably would have voted for Kevin McCarthy, because I feel like if I was in a swing district, I won because of him, not because of Andy Biggs, who probably didn't even know who I was until I won the election. So I would have said Andy Biggs needed to get involved in these elections, because his district's very safe, and when you're in a safe R district or safe Democrat district, you need to go on campaign for your colleagues and maybe your future colleagues. That's kind of how you're going to expand your majority. And that's something the Republicans couldn't do. Is the leadership was all out and going out and campaigning in Florida, New York, Arizona, and California. That helped us gain seats. But, I just still say, like, some of the part of the Freedom Caucus, what did they do to help?
Thank you, Thomas. Response from Branden.
What did they do to help? Look, I can only speak for what happened here in Arizona. Andy Biggs is my congressman. That's not why I'm supporting him. I would have supported him for speaker. I supported him for speaker in this debacle that happened because he is a true America First patriot. He speaks the message. He is tough on the issues. And look, he would have been a much better speaker than Kevin McCarthy. But I'm going to give Kevin McCarthy the chance. We'll see. But look, he said that Andy Biggs was not here helping. I went to Carrie Lake events and Blake Masters events. He was always there.
In Arizona, he was helping.
Sure, we're swing state. Of course, he's going to help.
But he's also in a safe R district. Don't you think he could go?
Andy Biggs wins his elections here by like 70%.
Well, so does Lisa McClain, but she was out campaigning in New York and Florida with Steve Scalise.
Lisa McClain is an okay person, but she really has only been there 2 years, and it's really
And then yet she's already in the
fallen
fifth
in
most
line with
powerful
the
position.
Hmm?
She's already in the fifth most powerful position in the House. So
Okay, well, I wonder what she did to get there. I mean, so
she was out campaigning for Republicans. This is she was one of the reasons why we won the House this year.
We'll see. But look, Andy Biggs, look, the Freedom Caucus is really the only thing that's standing up for our agenda in Congress, and it's sad because our agenda is the winning message, in my opinion.
All right, thank you, Branden. Thomas full response, but.
Well, like I've told, Branden, like Andy Biggs should have gone out and campaigned for these Republicans in these states like New York, but he did in New York.
He did. Why would he go to New York? He's in here trying to help Carrie Lake and a bunch of congressional
because he needs to go out and help other Republicans in states that are swing districts.
All right.
Because, like I said,
if your house is burning down, you're going to go over across the street and put out that house fire. No, you want to stay here in your state and help your candidates.
So you're saying you're just going to only help out your two candidates at one instead of the ones, because you're going to think, if I want to be the leader, shouldn't I help everyone else out besides myself? Because if you're helping yourself out, you're not leading.
Look,
but when you're helping other people, you're leading them. And that's what McCarthy did. He was out campaigning for everyone. That's leadership. When you're being a leader, you got to help out your fellow members.
Sure.
You got to help out your fellow members. And that's probably the issues why Andy Biggs wasn't qualified. He needs to go out and campaign for these other states. He got to get his name out because he knew that's how you're going to win districts, is when the GOP is united and there's more people helping other people campaign. Like we need in 2024, we're going to have to go out and campaign Ohio and North Carolina to keep our House majority because New York and California are going to probably be the most vulnerable districts.
Kevin McCarthy did a fantastic job. He barely won the House, 5-seat majority. I'm kidding.
But we also flipped seats in New York and California.
Okay, well, that's not because of Kevin McCarthy. That's because of Lee Zeldin and Ron DeSantis. So you're comparing two different states.
What? California was because of Ron DeSantis?
Florida, California
has their own
issues. Look, every state is different, Thomas. It's not a national issue. Okay.
But at the same time, you need the House funding to do so. And if you want to blame someone for the underperformance, you got to blame the person that was in charge of the House Republicans.
We do have to move to our last question, but thank you for the spirited debate right there. So I think we've seen definitely two distinct differences today. Rhino has been a term that's been, obviously since Trump became president, that's been thrown around a lot. But doesn't Rhino really mean that you're not backing the Republicans? So with the show of hands, is there but if you would support the eventual Republican nominee in 2024, no matter who it is, raise your hand right now. Okay, I will go to Branden on this first. Why is that?
Why is that? Because we have to get this election right in 2024. We're losing our country. Our culture is in the gutter. This is really the turning point. We are reaching the point of no return in our culture. And I will support whoever the Republican nominee is, but Donald Trump will have my support in the primary over someone like Ron DeSantis. I like Ron DeSantis, but look, he can wait his turn. And he's young, and he's somewhat of a career politician in a way. He's been there a while. He's kind of molded his life to be president. And I don't think that is something we need right now. We need a fighter. Donald Trump is on a revenge mission. And I think that we need that more than ever before. And we need somebody that's going to be a juggernaut to the system.
All right, Thomas, same to you. Explain your answer.
So, I mean, obviously after the midterm that Trump announced his fourth run for president, yes, his fourth run. And here's the thing. While Donald Trump had got, all these candidates I want to run for president elected, but doesn't it make more sense for him to pass the torch to someone younger and to keep this movement going? And Ron DeSantis has accomplished so much as a governor, as a proud conservative. He banned sanctuary cities, and he was to the right of Trump on COVID. And Ron DeSantis has actually won key voters in Florida. And he could also help in the Sun Belt. Yes, I'm saying in the Sun Belt, too. He could help in the Sun Belt, like Georgia and Arizona and Nevada. Trump is viewed as toxic in Georgia and Arizona and Nevada. A lot of people don't view him
I think that's an establishment lie. I think that
because really you got to look. Georgia is very establishment. But Ron DeSantis is viewed more normal for these people who are independent but right-leaning. But I would say that Trump probably does better in the Rust Belt than Ron DeSantis, but you could easily fix that with getting someone that's appealable to the Rust Belt. If Ron DeSantis is the nominee, you could pick a VP that could appeal to the Rust Belt, because we would win. We could probably win Wisconsin, and we will be 50-50 in Pennsylvania and come in with a few points in Michigan, no matter
All
which
right.
candidate we actually
And
pick.
we are at 30 minutes, so we are going to stop there. Thank you to thank you to Thomas. Thank you to Branden for being here. If you ever want to host a debate, contact us. We have our email and our Twitter in our bio. And next week, I will be doing my analysis on how I think the debate went. Be sure to check that out. But thank you guys. Have a good rest of your afternoon. All right.